All right. Welcome to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Broadhead. Today's guest is part of our Business Owner series and will offer insights into the needs, wants, and desires of this highly sought after client demographic. Today, we have an incredible business owner guest, Kara Smith Brown. Kara, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, Chris, thanks for having me. I'm Kara Smith Brown. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm the CEO of LeadCoverage. We are a go-to-market consultancy that specializes in the very sexy, very exciting world of supply chain and logistics.
Ooh. Yes, it may not be flashy, but my goodness, is it important?
Yeah, just in the US alone, it's about a $2 trillion market, and we are relatively recession-proof, right? So there are
Mhm.
swings in any market, bear and bull. Right now, we're in what we call a freight recession, although I think we're coming out of it. Well, on either side of the sort of how freight rates are doing, somebody wins. So regardless of how the winds are blowing, we're making money.
Nice, nice. So I like to start at the beginning. How did you get into this wild world?
So I was one of the first employees at a very sexy company called Echo Global Logistics. They were one of the
Mm.
first tech-enabled freight brokers. Actually was pretty sexy. It was the 600 West Chicago ecosystem, which is where Groupon was started. So I actually
Mm.
sent the first Groupon email from my inbox, which is a true story. I had nothing to do with the founding of the business, but it's a long story, but I was there. It was really fun. So I got to work on the IPO for Echo Global Logistics, which was totally wild and something really cool that I should not have been allowed to do at 25 years old with no finance background at all. But they were like, hey, you're young and fun, and we like to give you the challenges, and you're always willing to do it. You want to write an S1? I was like, yeah, I'll figure that out. So my name is on the IPO press release from their 2009 IPO, which was really cool. And then I got picked up by an international air freight forwarder called Seco, and I was there for about a year. And then out of there, I got picked up by Osborne Hesse Logistics. They were 6 years into a Welsh Carson private equity deal and were planning on going public. And I had just done an IPO in Chicago, so I moved to Nashville. Instead of going public, Katie Couric called. We had some issues that we had to deal with. Some guys went to jail. It was a whole thing. And they ended up not going public. So long story short, I popped out 2 kids, got an MBA, and then started my own business. So less than 2% of female founders will ever break $1 million in revenue. It's an American Express number. It's
Mm.
1.7% of female founders will ever break top line 1 million. So when I learned this, I was like, okay, that doesn't sound that hard. Hold my beer. And then I found out the number of women that break 10 million top line with no extra funding. So no rich uncle, no, sexy husband that comes in with cash. It's statistically irrelevant. It's so small they literally don't track it. So you can imagine the role.
Wow.
Yes. So a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about being a woman in
Hmm.
business, but we've had an awesome ride. I'm super proud of what we've done so far, and we're just getting started.
Wow. So for that second goal, it was more like hold my six pack.
Yeah, I guess so. Hold my bottle of wine, I guess, is what it's been more.
Hold my
But like,
rosé, maybe.
yeah,
Yeah.
hold my rosé while I go hit 10 million. Yeah. But it's good to have goals, right? And I think having goals that other people don't achieve has been kind of a theme for me. I did an
Hmm.
Ironman when I was in
Okay.
my 20s, mostly because a guy that I had a crush on in high school told me I couldn't. Um, so
Hmm.
I'm one of those people that it's like, hey, I don't think you can XYZ, whatever it is. And then I'm like, "Meh, all right, watch me, right? Like
Yeah.
doubt
Kara,
me.
Kara, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Kara, I don't think you can become a billionaire.
Exactly. Yes. Like
I don't just
possible. And I'm
don't
like,
see
all
it.
right, like let's do that. Let's make that happen. So that's been really fun. It's been a fun theme.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. I feel like you should have a reality show and it's like just people doubting you. You'd be like, all right, cool. Well, all right.
Yeah, just sometimes it takes a minute is the problem. Reality TV is pretty fast.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Ironman training took about 2 years to accomplish that goal. But there's this whole idea, less than 1% of the universe does an Ironman, less than 2% of women will break $1 million. Like this whole kind of theme of let's go do what other people say that we can't.
Yeah. And make it look pretty easy in the process.
I don't know about that. But I'm glad it looks
Yeah.
I've been posting to LinkedIn every day for like 5 years, and I have like 500 LinkedIn posts now saved. And people sometimes do say that, like, hey, you make it look easy. And I'm like, well, there are a lot of LinkedIn posts I didn't post of things that are like falling down, breaking apart, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's been great. It's been a really good ride.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and it seems like a lot of your entrepreneurial journey was spurned by this kind of cataclysmic event with Katie Couric, no doubt.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I think when I exited, I moved to Atlanta for a job. And when we exited that, my husband was here. We were living in Atlanta, and it was like, what do you do next? Right. And my husband
Hmm.
said to me, he is my biggest cheerleader. He said, listen, you're always happiest when you worked for yourself. And so I think
Hmm.
you should try it here in Atlanta. And then I met a woman who's part of the entrepreneur organization, which is just the greatest organization that I've been able to
Hmm.
find.
Yeah,
People that
that's great.
It was
Yeah.
amazing. And they all look and feel like me. And I remember I walked into my first cash day. It was an entrepreneur organization accelerator group. And so these are people that are 250,000, but not quite at 1 million in revenue. And I think I joined at like 415,000 in revenue. Like I was right in kind of their sweet spot. And I remember walking out of the cash day, having learned about Greg Crabtree's labor efficiency ratio. And I called my husband and I was like, I have met my people. Like, these are the people that I have been waiting to meet my whole adult life. Right. And so I've spent so much time and energy with that community, and I do international learning, and I've been to Harvard and Wharton. And it's just been so awesome to be continually learning with a group of people who are just as driven as you are. Cause like, we're
Mm.
kind of weird. Like we're not normal people.
Hmm.
We have regular conversations. We don't really want to like sit on the soccer field. Like we're a little bit bananas, and sometimes we can get annoying, and like just how much this is all we want to talk about. So yeah, it's been a really good ride. I think when you make it look easy, people think they can do it, and it's way harder than anyone expects it to be.
Hmm. Awesome, awesome. So you always had these entrepreneurial aspirations. That was definitely something you were gonna do, no matter what.
No, not at all.
No.
No way.
Okay.
Like, no way. I grew up, my parents are amazing. I have salted their parents. They're so great, but they were both employees. They had jobs, and they've done really well, and they had great careers, both of them. And my mom got to be a stay-at-home mom when I was young, and I like silver spoon. Every time I get on a podcast, we're like, tell us your story. And I'm like, there's nothing bad that happened to me. Like I've no sad, like nothing. Just the fact that I'm a woman puts me at a disadvantage, but like really everything was great.
Yeah.
But I didn't really think that I was the entrepreneur, right? Like I'd always worked for men, like specifically Eric Lefkowski and Brad Keywell in Chicago. They were the entrepreneurs. Like they started businesses, and I was very happy to just work for them. That was great. And I was really happy in that environment. And it wasn't until we got to Atlanta when I had a corporate job experience that wasn't wonderful. And I think
Mm.
I had a
You mean a
really
corporate job experience?
Yeah. So like I have really
Yeah.
great corporate experiences when I was younger. And then when I was a little bit older in my career, I had some pretty terrible, more than one, like pretty
Mm.
awful corporate roles that were like, this is not what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
And I think it gave me sort of a new perspective on just how bad it can be. And I had
Yeah.
not had that in my 20s. I was so blessed in my 20s to have these like really exciting opportunities and these role models like Doug Wagner and Scott Perzoni, these men that are still in my life that I have so much respect for to this day. And then I had some really terrible experiences. And I think when I
Mm.
was ready to do the next thing, I had finished having babies and I was ready for like what's going to happen next. I was like, me, why not? But it really didn't happen until I was well into my 30s. Like, I'm not someone who was in like eighth grade selling candy out of my backpack. Like, that was not my story. Like, I'd love to have a story like that, but it's not mine.
Yeah.
I think one of my kids actually might be one of those people, but it wasn't my story. Like, I just wanted to fit in. I wanted to be kind of like, I don't know, a normal kid, but I never was. I was always really nerdy, but like in an annoying way. My friends from high school are like, God, can't you just shut up? Like I just wanted to learn and like, be around people that could put things together quickly like I can, but
Hmm.
I'm not book smart. Like I didn't go to Harvard. Like I'm not, I don't have a super high IQ.
Hmm.
I really love to connect the dots with really smart people that are smart in different ways that I'm smart. And I love reading and learning. So it was not a natural progression for me. And then I think the sort of female piece and like having a chip on my shoulder definitely helped, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So how did you like get momentum? How did you, you said you started at EO already having over 400K in revenue.
Yeah.
How'd you figure that out?
Desperation, Chris. So, I mean, I had two small children. I have a wonderful husband. He's always supported these crazy ideas that I have. And I had to make money. Like we had
Mhm.
like a life to fund. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't wait for people to come and find me. Like I had to go out there and find them. We spent the first 4 years of the company with no website. Like I do
Oh
marketing.
wow.
So you would think I have like a fancy website and like I didn't have a logo until it was like 4 or 5 years in. Like
Wow.
we were just doing the work and we were finding, like any consultant or any, business owner starts out, you just start with your own network. And I was super, super fortunate that the folks that were kind of there at the beginning of my career were also entrepreneurial nature and there were other businesses that spun out. And so I just stayed in touch with people and let them know that I was consulting. And I remember one of my very first customers, still a dear friend, and they paid me $1,400 a month to do marketing for them. And I was over the moon. I could not believe it. Like, oh my God, they're going to pay me $1,400 a month. Now we charge multiples of that. And so I could have stayed where I was and I could have made myself a healthy living. And this is what I say to women that often are like, hey, how did you go from, yourself to a team of 40 and, basically hitting 10 million? And what does that road look like? And at the end of the day, you have to want that transition. So one of the people in EO told me when I got started, you need to make the decision, right? It's up to you. You can stay an individual contributor, you can stay a consultant, you'll probably make more money, like make more money if you just consult and it's just you and you do some jobs and get project work and you just make that happen. Or you have to make the decision that you're going to be a business owner and you're going to learn how to run a company and you're going to learn how to be a CEO and you're going to learn how to hire and fire and do HR and finance and bank covenants. I mean, all the things I've learned in the last, 7 or 8 years. And I made the decision that I wanted to be a CEO. And that's not the right decision for everyone. But it was the right decision for me.
Mhm. Awesome. Awesome. So, okay. And what sort of types of marketing were you doing for these companies?
So at the beginning, it was pretty basic stuff, right? We were an
Yeah.
early HubSpot partner. We were writing newsletters and, making sure people knew who they were getting in front of. We were cleaning up CRMs. We now have a very clear point of view to the point that we wrote a 60,000 word book all about it. So we have a book that comes out. I have a book that comes out in October. It's called The
Hmm.
Revenue Engine, and it's all about supply chain go to market. And we think about go to market as the sort of intersection between marketing, sales, and customer success. And that's not my definition, that's the market's definition. And so we're sort of doing anything that touches, we are doing anything that touches the funnel. And then about maybe a year, 2 years ago, 18 months ago, we went all in on ABM and intent data. And so we are the resource in supply chain. If you are interested in intent data or you're interested in ABM, we are the folks that are going to do it for you. No one else can do it in the space. And then my partner, Will Haraway, he's just an idiot savant when it comes to public relations in supply chain. And I know that sounds like it's super niche, but it is. But specifically in public relations, and we call it commercial PR. So we're not doing like, press releases around awards and things like that. Those, we will do them, but they don't really move the needle. I mean, like real meaningful press that moves the needle on revenue. Um, that's been something that we've been working on too, is like, how do we codify the processes around turning the demand gen engine starts with PR. So we think of share good news, track interest, follow up. And we're so good at it that we literally wrote the book on it, which is really fun.
That's awesome. You literally wrote the book. Um, so, taking just a quick step back, like why supply chain? Why did that become your focus?
So it was where my career was, which was 100% an accident. So I was working for a association management company. It was just the job that I could get in 2004 when I graduated. And I have a poli-sci degree. I didn't go to law school. I was, like any floundering 22-year-old out of college. And my dad was like, you got to get a job. Like, you need to get out of the house. So I ended up working for an association management company. It was a great experience, but I was ready to do something else. And I ended up interviewing at this startup. And it was a startup around technology for transportation. And my dad said to me, well, you should do that job because it's, you're 24 and all startups fail. So it'll fail, but like it'll be really fun and you'll learn a lot and it'll be a lot of energy. And so for 3 years later, when we did the IPO, I was like, hey, dad, so I think this is okay, right? This is good. He's like, don't be a jerk. He's like, it's great. So like, it's like, yes, it's awesome. But I had literally loaded trucks in college. Like I had routed trucks for the Expo Home Depot delivery. So Home Depot used to have a separate store called the Expo Home Depot stores, and you could buy like Monogram refrigerators and Viking appliances. They don't even have it anymore. And we were routing trucks in the suburbs of Chicago to deliver like Viking refrigerators and monogrammed crazy appliances to like super rich people in Chicago. And so when I applied at Echo Global Logistics, they asked me like, what do you know about logistics? And I was like, oh, like actually I've done this. Like I can drive a forklift. And they were like, you're hired. That's great. Like that's we can do. It's probably better than we can do, right? And I was cheap and I was young and they were a startup and it was so fun. And like those first couple of years were just awesome. They were so great. And I have so much so many fond memories and I'm so grateful to that whole team for letting me be a part of that ride. But that's how I got into it. And then I kind of stayed and I've learned to really, really appreciate the logistics space. When I worked for Doug Wagner, which was an awesome experience, he used to talk about the size of the transportation market, and it always blew me away, like how fortunate I was to end up in an industry that was hyper specific in terms of recession resistant, enormous, right? We think about supply chain as the physical movement of goods, the tech that moves the goods, and the money that moves the goods. And then, we hit the pandemic and we had sort of been flirting with other industries outside of supply chain up until the pandemic. And then March of 2020, like everyone in supply chain, they all got EBITDA drunk. So they were all like, when your toilet paper was late, all my clients made money. When your bike didn't arrive from track for months and months, all my clients made money. Like the amount of money that was pumped into the supply chain during the pandemic and all of the disruptions was just unbelievable. And so we sort of decided like, okay, this is it. Like we're going to double down on supply chain and make this the thing. And at the end of the pandemic, as we sort of came out of the pandemic and freight levels started sort of leveling off and people started getting more anxious about freight rates moving into 2023 and 2024, we doubled down on account-based marketing and like really took a stand on this is the thing that works. And now we have sort of three things that work in supply chain. So, it wasn't a natural progression necessarily. We really do have to work at thinking about our point of view, which I think goes back to sort of how I am in general in terms of goal setting. And I went to Harvard and learned all about frameworks for like a week. And I was like, this is it. We just need a framework. And so we made a framework and now we have a 9-step process and that process is in the book. And that's what we walk clients through. And we have a very specific point of view. And so I think having a specific point of view in a $2 trillion industry is really what sets us apart.
Hmm. Okay. So you have your niche, and now you're talking about actually specializing in one or three specific services. Uh, you started the company in 2016, you said?
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay. So, that's an incredibly short timeline to reach 10 million and 40 employees. Like, kudos to that. Um, like, I mean, I have so many development questions here. I'm so curious. Like, how did you figure out that, you not only needed a niche to focus on, but you also, in order to grow to 10 million in revenue, like it helps to have a scalable service. Like, how did you figure that out? And then how did you decide which service it would be, or core services?
The sort of understanding that you need to have something that is scalable, I think it just comes when you start a company. Like, I'm not sure that I knew what it was going to be, and I'm still not sure. Like, it may change in 6 months. It's unlikely, but I think we're kind of there. But we did have to make a decision on the type of company we were going to be. So we easily could have become, like Henry Ford said, if I had given people what they wanted, I would have given them a faster horse, right?
Mhm.
So I'm not Henry Ford, but like we needed to give the supply chain market something that was going to show value. Value for them is leads, it's revenue, right? So we went out kind of initially as lead gen, and then people were asking us for like Zoom info style, like just records. Like, can you just turn these email addresses into revenue? And we very quickly understood that was not going to happen. Um, I think the PR piece kind of happened naturally. So we had a client in Atlanta. Will was doing really good PR for them, but he wasn't able to measure it. And so we said, okay, well, if we apply the demand gen measurement principles of volume, velocity, and value against the PR component, can we come up with some KPIs that make sense? And so it was pretty organic. Like, CMOs are always trying to prove their worth. Chief revenue officers are always trying to say, you know, marketing didn't bring that in, we brought that in. Like, the sales and marketing misalignment is everywhere. Like, there were pieces that we could have picked to to dive into, but we all know it all comes back to revenue. Like, it all comes back to revenue. So if you're not participating in the revenue engine, in the revenue cycle for your clients, like from what I do, you're going to get kicked out and you're not going to get a seat at the table. And we really wanted a seat at the table. And so we started to like apply pressure where our clients had pain, is really what it comes down to. Like, our clients had pain around not being able to deliver their perceived value. They didn't have a measurement methodology around like what they were doing for marketing and go to market. And I think historically, this is a blatant generalization, logistics and supply chain are just behind. They're just behind, right? They're not a first mover on anything tech related. So we had a kind of unique opportunity to take what was happening in MarTech and FinTech at the time, this go-to-market move, this intent data, right? Now it'll be AI moving forward, like to take what they're doing and to apply it to this $2 trillion market. And I think when I figured that out, I was like, okay, I'm going to take what these really smart people are doing at Pavilion or the Revenue Collective, and I'm going to take what they're all doing for their businesses, and I'm just going to apply it to this very specific market that nobody else wants to get into, right? Like, no one's paying attention to these guys. And I think once we did that, the rest of it sort of fell into place. I think what clients are asking for, spending time really thinking deeply about how do we give that to them and make our clients the hero. I'll tell you, we continue to sort of iterate on this. Our marketing for my business is atrocious. Like, it's embarrassingly bad. Cobbler's children has no shoes. And we finally, like 2 weeks ago, we're 8 years into this thing. 2 weeks ago, had our whole leadership team sit down with someone who knows something about branding. And we finally came up with a tagline that I'm really happy with. And we're saying we make market leaders. And we do it either in Gartner. We've got proof that we make market leaders in Gartner. We have proof that we make market leaders from a revenue perspective because we can track the revenue we're driving. And what's really cool is we're creating market leaders inside of our clients, where the folks that have brought us in as their sort of secret weapon are getting promoted. They're getting promoted to like chief revenue officer or chief commercial officer or VP. And it's because they've brought in this like secret weapon, and we're teaching them like the ways that we're seeing it that are working. And so it's this really cool, unique opportunity to like be a thought leader in a $2 trillion space and use the really smart folks that are in MarTech and EdTech and FinTech to help guide that for this group of this $2 trillion market that is not paying attention to what is happening in the MarTech, FinTech, EdTech markets. Like they're just not. They can't keep their finger on the pulse of everything. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I think it was pretty organic. And the last sort of piece of it is listening to what buyers are asking me, right? Like I'm a CEO. I take calls probably once or twice a month. I'll have a call with someone from a PE shop or someone doing some diligence on buying companies just to figure out what's going on. And everybody's kind of asked the same questions, right? And so once you hear the same, we're like, okay, once I do go to sell this thing, like I'm going to have to answer these questions. So how do I get myself ready to answer these questions when it is my time to answer, which is not today, but maybe it'll be in a couple of years. And so really listening to what people want to buy and what they're interested in when they're doing that purchase process, like the acquisition process, has also been helpful for us to understand what needs to come next.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Awesome. So, so it's the services, and I have to comment, the fact that your clients get promoted, like talk about a good testimonial.
It's very cool. It's very cool. Like it's so
That's
neat
amazing.
when you get to like help someone get to their next career goal, right? And we're
Yeah.
making market leaders of our people. Like our people are learning. You're going to learn more when you work at LeadCoverage for a year than any other marketing group, because we are like the pace that we go and the hyper specific niche allows us to do better, cooler stuff because we're not learning a new niche every time. I don't need to learn about liquor. I don't need to learn about healthcare. I don't need to learn about furniture. I already know exactly who this customer is to their competitors and to their customers. Now I just need to do the really cool marketing stuff, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. That's the power of niches. Our niche is predominantly financial advisors. And I every time I meet with one and I'm like, oh yeah, so we only serve financial advisors. They're like, what? Like I've never heard of that someone does that. And they're like, okay, like I'm listening to you. You obviously know what the heck you're talking about.
Yeah. And when I tell people in supply chain, when I tell them my origin story and like how I got to where I am, then all the name dropping of all these big groups, and they're like, oh wow, like okay. Like I don't need to prove myself, right? Like I know the difference between LTL and LCL, and I know the challenges they're facing, and I have other customers that are probably facing the same challenges. It was actually really cool. I was in Birmingham, Alabama this week, and a client pulled up a LinkedIn post that I posted. And he said, hey, you posted this LinkedIn post and I want to have a conversation about it with my leadership team. And I was like, what? Like, that's great. Okay. Right. Like, so the fact that we're seeing, we have 32 clients. So we're seeing the same challenges across 32 clients inside of a niche. And as we move to 60 clients and 100 clients, like we will become the bellwether of great go-to-market just because our laboratory is so big, right? Like we can tell you this is what good looks like and this is what good doesn't look like because I'm seeing it times 100.
Yeah, awesome. And if I understand correctly, your main marketing service is PR focused.
So it's really interesting. It's really full go-to-market.
Okay.
And people love to put us in a tiny box But it's really all of the boxes strung together. So
Mm.
PR and AR, so your public relations, also your analyst relations. So in supply chain specifically, Gartner is they are the jam, right? So
Mhm.
we had a client tell us one time, my clients don't get out of bed without checking Gartner. Like that's like it. So we do all things public relations and analyst relations, specifically Gartner. We do some Forrester, Morningstar, IDC, things like that. Anything that touches demand gen. So this is LinkedIn, social media, but I don't love the word social media because it makes it sound like we do Instagram, which we don't. So LinkedIn, HubSpot, Marketo, Salesforce, anything sort of revenue operations. And then we actually have a team that will make the first dial. So share good news, track interest, follow up. And the follow up has to happen immediately. And we used to just hand like lists of leads back to clients and be like, hey, Mr. Client, here's the 75 folks that you should call. And then they would fire us and they would tell us that our leads were garbage. And then we would go in and check and we'd be like, how do you know you never called them? Right. So now we call them ourselves and we say, hey,
Yeah.
great. And we pass them back. And so we can
Yeah.
see hundreds of millions of dollars in opportunity value that we put into pipelines by making the first dial and handing it back.
Mhm. Turns out these leads are not so bad after all.
But someone does have to follow up.
Yeah.
I also have been sharing this so often lately that one of the biggest issues that we're seeing is that people are just not following up enough.
Mhm.
So our SOP is a record, an email address must be followed up on 35 times before it can be disqualified. And we've got clients where the sales rep will touch it twice and then just move on. And these
Mm.
are enormous brands that have shown intent. So
Mhm.
Target, right, comes to your website. Someone from Target's interested. They're filling out a form. They came to a webinar, whatever it is. And then you call them twice and they don't answer or they don't reply to your email and you just disqualify them. Not like, hey, I'll call them in 2 weeks, but like hit the DQ button, meaning that no one's talking to Target ever again. And that that's our biggest challenge. It's our biggest challenge. Our biggest challenge is how do we get our clients to follow an SOP where you're like actually following up more than you ever had before? It's not like it
Mhm.
was 20 years ago where we used to like have a phone book open and just bang through the phone book. It's so much more sophisticated than that. And the buyers are more sophisticated too.
Mhm. Okay. That's awesome. And then how are you proving ROI here?
All about math, like
Yeah.
all about math. So we do a ton of math. We call it marketing math. We don't call it data. We don't call it analytics. Like it is just math. It's basic arithmetic. It is how many leads have we put in the top of the funnel? How fast are they getting through the funnel? And what is the value of each of them? Right. So volume, velocity, and value at every piece of the funnel. Right. And we believe there are three funnels. There is the prospect funnel, which is basically strangers to no longer strangers. And you speak to this stranger funnel very differently than you speak to your nurture funnel, right? These folks are getting, top level stuff. Are you alive? Do you care? Like, are you remotely interested? Right? These are total strangers. When they actually know who you are and they've shown you some interest, then you hit the nurture funnel. And the nurture funnel is where the action really happens. This is like all the good stuff, education, moving the needle, moving them down the funnel, tracking interest, lead scoring, doing some intent data, ABM, like all of the action happens inside the nurture funnel. And when they get to the bottom of the nurture funnel, they have an opportunity that sales is ready to close. And that's what it is, right? The MQL to SQL transition. We are handing it off to the sales team to say, now this is on you, right? We don't close deals. We're putting the hot ones into your pipeline. And if the sales team can't close, like that's on us, right? And then we pass it over. And the last funnel is the customer cross-sell, upsell funnel, which I think is just so often neglected. Definitely in supply chain, but probably in your clients' businesses too. Like once you get someone on the hook and you close them, I mean, for your audience, once you have your money with someone, it's really hard to move that money. So like doing it again with a second, making a move to another financial advisor would probably be pretty painful for everyone involved. So what else can you sell, right? How do you cross sell, upsell the folks that are already working with you and already a customer? So most of our clients don't spend enough time on retention and upsell, cross sell.
Mhm. Got it. Got it. And the biggest drivers of putting leads actually into the funnels is what?
Ask the question a different way.
So you're talking about three different funnels you have, and what is starting the leads into those funnels? It's the PR, it's the
Oh, that's
LinkedIn,
actually okay.
it's
So that's a different question that I thought you were asking. You decide who's in the funnel. They don't decide. You must choose who is your ideal customer profile. And then you must purchase the email address of every human who could potentially buy from you. So
cold
theoretically,
email.
yeah, I mean you're buying email addresses. You need to
Yeah.
buy emails and phone numbers, and you need to put
Apollo
those
is the
numbers.
greatest thing ever invented. You guys
Maybe
use
for your
Apollo?
market, I don't think Apollo's that great. Zoom Info, Sales Intel is actually my preferred tool, but Sangram, the CEO of Sales Intel, and I are building a supply chain center of excellence inside of Sales Intel. So if it's Apollo for your audience, great. I'm relatively agnostic. They definitely get my information because I'm hounded by financial guys. So wherever I'm listed is where they're finding me. And if you're looking for high net worth individuals, you're looking for email addresses, you're looking for, work information, you're looking for exit information, right? And so that's all available. You can find it all. But you don't necessarily want someone, the goal is not to have people enter your funnel. The goal is to put every human who could buy from you in the funnel and then get them to the bottom of the first funnel, right? And so the funnels are not, they don't act, they're not independent. They are dependent on each other. And so you don't start at the nurture funnel, you start at the top of the stranger funnel. Like people don't know who you are until you tell them who you are. And they really don't care about you. I think that's another thing. Like they do not care about you. I do not care about who is in Atlanta to manage my money because right now it's not a pain. So Harvard says that 95% of your buying community is not in market. They're not buying. When I go to sell this business, I will definitely be in market, right? But nobody knows when. There's no way for me to tell you I'm a small business owner, I'm privately held. Like there's no way for me to tell every financial advisor in Atlanta, like, hey, I'm going to sell my business in 6 months. Like, who wants to help me manage my money, right? Like, and so the name of the game is to stay in front of me until that moment, and then when that moment happens, I will show someone a buying signal, right? And
Hmm.
whoever it is the one who's going to get in front of me at the right time. And in the meantime, you got to have every email address inside of your CRM. If you wait for them to come to you, you will never stop waiting.
Yeah, absolutely. So is it immediately pitching them on setting up a call, or are you like, hey, we have this information, would you like to receive it? What's the first step that the prospect takes with you guys?
Well, with me, like my prospects, or in the work that we do.
No, for the work that you do, yeah.
So in the work that we do, generally we're just looking for a human being behind an email address,
So
right?
you're like, is anyone in there?
Yeah, like literally, is anyone alive?
Yeah.
Remember, my ideal customer profile for most of my clients is a multi-billion-dollar shipper, right? So like we're talking 6 to 12 people in a buying committee. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars in freight spend. We're talking like really in-depth B2B sales engines, right? Which is very different than your market is looking for. So I can get in front of 40 to 60 people and find the 2 to 4 that are interested. And those are the 2 to 4 that I want to spend time on. And it's a lot easier for me to do that because business, people kind of expect to be spammed on their business account. And it's like, it is what it is. You just hit the button and tell them to go away. But you're going to hit the right people in terms of your ideal customer profile, but you do have to know who they are. I mean, the same thing is true in business as it is in B2C, is you really do have to know who your ideal customer profile is. And you would be amazed at the number of clients we have who do not know who their ideal customer profile is.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
baffling
it's
sometimes.
wild. There are
Like, how'd you make it so far?
yeah. Well, I mean, people sell to their friends, right?
Yeah.
There are 19,000 867, I think is the number, 677 shippers in America that ship more than $7 million in freight.
Wow.
That's a ton. That's
Yeah.
20,000 companies, right? And every single person in supply chain is going after the same 20,000 shippers. And so
Hmm.
that's like, how do you get in front of them? You just got to stay in front of them. And eventually
Yeah.
someone will be in a buying cycle.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, this is great. We've gone over. I want to respect your time. I could definitely keep asking you questions for the rest of the afternoon, but we'll save that for another time.
This was fun.
I
Thanks for
have,
having me.
yeah, no, this was great. You're an inspiration. Um, I have one final question for you, and it is an open-ended question. You can take it in any direction that you feel called to take it. And the question is, what are you working towards?
Oh, yeah. I'm working towards total freedom.
Mm,
Just
amen.
total freedom, right? Financial freedom, life freedom. I have two children, so I'd like to get them out of the house at some point too. Freedom from kids, freedom from everything. I got 8 years until the kids are in college. And being able to kind of do whatever I want, whenever I want to do it. I think that's pretty common, I would assume, on entrepreneurs after putting time, energy, money, sweat, tears, and all the things into this thing is getting something out of it that'll let me be
Hmm.
free and do what I want to do.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, I think that's probably it.
yeah. I love that. I am 100% with you on that one. So, cheers to us. Hold our beers and bring on the freedom. Thank you so much. Where can our audience find out more about you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, aggressively on LinkedIn.
Mm,
So
hmm.
you can find me there. I'm Kara Smith Brown.
Harris Smith Brown, and we will link to that in the show notes as well as your amazing URL leadcoverage.com.
Great.
That's a killer website. Well, Kara, thank you so much for taking the time. This was I really enjoyed this.
Super. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, yeah. And to all our listeners out there, saying thanks so much for tuning in and keep on growing out there, everybody. See ya.